And Maria, we have to start with this quote from the German economy minister. It reads as follows: "I wouldn't support an embargo on imports of fossil fuels from Russia. I would even speak out against it." On those words, crude turning around. It was positive, now negative. Equities flying up 0.75%. Maria, your read on those comments in the last 20 minutes.
Well, what it shows is this huge dependency that Germany still has on gas, and that this transition cannot be done overnight. That is the economic reality of it, and that is a real politic that the German government is trying to put on the table. But Jonathan, having said that, I know there is a real debate happening behind closed doors between the different countries, of course, that form the European Union. We talk about 27 countries. They all have to agree on everything unanimously. And I do know, just to give you an idea, some of the conversations happening behind the scenes is that countries like Poland, which share a land border with Belarus, that are incredibly concerned about Vladimir Putin and his actions moving east, they still continue to say we will have a debate about a full ban. Anything that has to do with Gazprom, anything that has to do with oil that comes from Russia, from gas that is coming from Russia, that is at this point blood money, and it should not be a concern for us. We should tackle this issue head on. I also know that behind the scenes, and officials argue, we've talked for weeks, months about the dangers of coal, how this is so bad for climate, but when it gets serious, we'd rather still say we want to be clean, continue to use some of this energy and not turn to coal. So there is a very real debate happening here, which I believe will get more tense as we enter another week of fighting.
Brent crude down 1.3%, 111, came close to 120 overnight at 119.84. AMH, your comments on this particular story. Here we are, Germany saying no. Just as the momentum was starting to build in that direction on this side of the Atlantic.
Well, Jonathan, I think the administration has made it very clear. Although President Biden yesterday had said that energy is on the table, they want carve-outs for the energy industry because look at where the prices are headed. And it's not just oil and gas. And we should note on gas, billions of dollars go from, in terms of transit fees, go from Russia to Europe. Those transit fees, Ukraine makes money off of and needs that money. So there has been this energy carve-out. And this is something they've wanted to make sure that they could keep within the global system because of Russia's importance. And it's not just oil and gas. Aluminum, wheat, corn, all of these agricultural and hard commodities, base metals is needed. And the problem is that if you take Russia out of the market, you're going to see a spike in prices, which we saw this morning. And what does that mean for the everyday consumer around the world? That feeds into the supply chain, and it feeds into our grocery bills. And what is a gallon of oil going to cost at the gasoline pump? Just going through the numbers right now, Russia and Ukraine supply more than a quarter of world wheat exports, 1/5 of corn sales, 80% of sunflower oil cargoes for Europe. You know the energy dependence story. Crude from Russia, about a quarter of Europe's crude, 1/3 of its natural gas, in Germany much more so. Annmarie, the US is different though. I go through the numbers that Bloomberg has crunched. 3% in 2021, Russian crude comprised 3% of US imports, just 3%. And refiners in America, some of them, AMH, aren't touching Russian crude anyway. How difficult would it be for America actually to execute this embargo on their own? Well, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the Russian exports into America in terms of crude, it's about 600,000 for petroleum products. 200,000 of that is crude. And the reason why some of these refiners really need Russian crude is because the type of crude it is. It's very thick, it's high in sulfur, it's viscous. We sometimes have in America a little bit more of a sweeter crude. And the numbers, Jonathan, are a little bit staggering when you start to rank them. Canada is first, then it's Mexico, then it's Russia ahead of Saudi Arabia. But there's growing momentum on Capitol Hill from the likes of Senator Manchin, from the likes of Senator Murkowski, that they want to ban U.S. imports of Russian crude. This would definitely impact the market. Although when you look at the number 3% doesn't sound like a lot, it would impact the market. But you make a very valid point. People are not touching this at the moment. Ships don't want to go there. 300% higher to get freight costs. You have to get war insurance. Then you have individuals who are just nervous about the legality of all. How would these transactions work? Where's the financing coming from? And then there's the moral obligation, a reputational risk of putting it on the line. People just don't want to deal with Putin's Russia right now. These commodities at the moment are seen as toxic assets. You see that through the commodity market and elsewhere too. Maria, I just wanted to give you the final word. There are some talks taking place today between Ukraine, between Russia as well. Vladimir Putin, though, in the headlines that I've seen from Interfax, Maria, he's got different ideas.
Yeah, and Jonathan, it's very difficult to see how we go from a military solution to this, to a diplomatic way forward, because in a call with Emmanuel Macron, some of the information that is feeding of it is that Vladimir Putin reiterated that Russia has military and political goals to meet and comply in Ukraine and will fulfill this operation. So the mood music that we get from Russia is that they're not intending on backing down. When you speak to the Ukrainians, by the way, they say we'll sit down and we'll hear what they have to say. But if the Russians believe that we're going to capitulate after a week of war, after everything that we've seen in our cities and ports, they're dreaming. We're not going to capitulate. And that is the feedback also that I get from a lot of normal, everyday Ukrainians who are still in the country and who say, after everything that's happened, a negotiated solution looks very difficult. Russia has done a lot of damage. It will be very difficult for Ukraine to forgive what's happened overnight.